Do you see any broad sort of strategic trends that are emerging? Like if you were to look over the horizon a year, let's go 3 years out. Let's look over the horizon 3 years out. What do chief data officers and folks involved in, I would put it this way, you're head of Omnichannel, which means you're working in data, you're swimming in data all the time in terms of making choices about what you invest in and going forward. And you mentioned the human capital that's required and the skills and the resources. What are you seeing as trends, either positive or challenges that are emerging?
Another good question. If I look at the 3-year horizon for trends, and this is not just specific to Omnichannel as well. In Omnichannel, we do have to stitch and navigate data for customer experiences. But if I think about the data landscape and analytics landscape in general, I would say irrespective of industry, size, sector, people have to care about security, privacy, and potential, and always be prepared for regulatory, even if your industry is not very regulated. That aspect of how we manage data and the relevant capabilities will always be an important need. And I believe in strong partnerships with CISO to evolve those practices hand in hand. You're also at the cusp of where, and Andrew Ang from Deep Learning that I follow, deeplearning.ai, is a firm believer that we are going to see more and more open source models starting to satisfy many of the use cases that we normally would have spent building models ourselves or customizing to our use cases, right? I think he's gung-ho about going into a data ops from an ML-focused model where we build models first and then take it to the data. I think he's talking about getting the data prepped and then feeding it to an open source model. So I think that's a trend that is growing. I think he's hosting the first competition as well about data ops. So I'm nowhere near close to participating yet, but very curious to see how that pans out. And I think lastly, computing power is phenomenal. The ubiquity of how accessible that computing power has become to an average citizen, ML engineer or a data scientist to play around with data, I think are all good trends that are picking up. I think data ops is certainly a key pillar of that, productionalizing AI use cases and data use cases on top of them. So those are all stuff that I'm very excited about as well.
Those are all very positive, and you can't do any better than following the father of deep learning, Andrew Ng. No, those are important considerations. I've heard it phrased, I think well put, as it used to be that the algorithms were our proprietary, that was the most important. And since there's a move to open source, as you've outlined, now our data and the quality of our data and the sources of data that we're able to access become more important. So the refinery process, if you will, if data was oil, the refinery process is no longer the secret sauce. It's the actual access to that data.
It's still sometimes the longest pull, but it is
right.
The access to the data that's key.
That's right.